Once again, a special welcome, particularly to our candidates for First Communion. I invite you to please stand so I can get a good look at you. Fantastic, fantastic. You cleaned up really well. Please be seated. You look great. And I look great too, don't I? Yeah, and then I look around, it's like, what happened to those people? But how wonderful. You know, so every year I take a survey of all the first communicant. I love bread. I'm fixated with bread, right? So what's your favorite bread? Do you eat bread very often? Yes. What's your favorite bread? Baguette. Oh, yes, after my own heart, yes. And you know what's really good about baguette? If you have an itch in the back of your, Yes. What's another favorite bread? Yes. White bread, the classic white bread, right? Can't go wrong with white bread. Any other bread? Yes. Garlic bread, yes, especially when you're hanging out for a big date. I know, on Saturday night, that's my favorite bread, huh? Date night, yes, exactly. Yeah, you know what my favorite bread is? Yes, custard-filled Long John. See, yeah, you narrow yourself to bread, right? I think of bread more extensively, right? But I'm fixated with bread the last few months because I've been trying to perfect this recipe for a cinnamon raisin bread. And I think I'm getting close. I figure another 10 pounds, I'll have it down. But I tell you about bread because you are going to receive a special type of bread today. That Jesus loves us so much, he loves you and he loves me, that he's always trying to find different ways in which he comes to us. And you probably experienced Jesus' love already in your life, right? In the love that your parents have for you, right? That's one way in which Jesus comes to you in that love. In the friendship that you have with your classmates, right, and your friends, right, you value those friendships. That's another way in which Jesus comes to you. You know, in the love that your teachers have for you, in the care that they have for your education, and certainly all the loves that your grandparents and your other relatives have for you. But this day, the Lord comes to you in a special way. Jesus comes to you in a special way in the form of bread. The form of bread so that as you partake, as you eat of him, that you become more and more like him. And so we celebrate with you today this important occasion. Okay? And that may you become more resemblance of what you eat. That may Jesus becomes fully alive and active in your life as you take this important step in your life of faith. Right? And so now I think I probably should say something to the older people in the crowd. In the first reading today, from the Acts of the Apostle, we hear how it is that the life of faith come into contact within culture. That faith is always passed on within the context of culture and never in isolation. And so what the early church is struggling with is up until this point, the new members of the Christian church, of the Church of Jesus, has been by and large convert from Judaism. Now that the gospel is being spread beyond Judea and Palestine, it's now coming into contact with Gentile culture and pagan culture. And so there was a drag-out fight. We call it the Council of Jerusalem, in which they were trying to resolve some important questions. And what we hear today is the result of their deliberation. But I think what's more important for us to focus on is the acknowledgement that faith is always lived in its encounter with the culture. And as we know today, this culture is very unique and proposes different challenge for the life of faith and for the spreading of the faith. Now, I was praying and thinking about what I was going to preach today, and it made me kind of hesitant, to be honest with you, because I don't want it to come across as me, a celibate man, trying to talk to you, parents and grandparents, and advise you how it is that you should be raising your children. Right? That's not really my role, and probably I'm not the best one equipped to do that. Rather, I'm a reader of the signs of the time, and I'm also a reader of surveys and scientific study. So I just want to highlight a few things that were revelatory for me in reading a report recently. It's basically a survey of young people, particularly concentrating on their life of faith. In fact, I think the report is called The State of Faith and Religion Among Young People, Year 2021, right? I know that sends shivers of excitement through your veins, but that's what I do for a living. But it was very interesting, some things that were absolutely crucial in that survey, and I want to bring to your attention. That they've been doing these surveys for a long time and across all the different surveying and research company. The one thing that's constant is the role of the parents, how important the role of the parents in the life of faith, that you are essential in that life of faith. And it becomes more and more important now because we no longer have the institutions that reinforce that message of morality and that message of truth and that message of the good news of the gospel. And so your role as parents have become even more important than ever before. And that your role of parents has become even more difficult than ever before. Because it used to be that we had institutions like mass media that would reinforce what it is that you're trying to teach, right? You heard me say before, Fulton Sheen had the most popular, Archbishop Fulton Sheen had the most popular TV show in the United States not that long ago, right? That message that you were trying to teach in the home was reinforced in the schools, in the neighborhood, right, where we look out for one another. Because I don't know about you, but I remember when I got into trouble, I had to fear the neighbors more than my parents, right? Because they had a vested interest in me doing the right thing. So that's the second thing that the survey tells us, is that our young people, their trust in institution has completely eroded away. In fact, the highest score that was given to any institution among the young people was a score of 5 on a scale of 10. Right? That's how challenging that landscape is for those who are institution. And so for someone like me, when I go out there and I'm in my costume, with the black and the white color, already our young people are suspicious of that I go out there already from a deficit, right? And so the effectiveness of the passing on of the faith from an institutional basis is not what it used to be, right? Because think back in your own experience, those of you who are older, that your parents were probably the most important people in your life as far as the life of faith, right? But for many of us, the parish priest was also right up there. Well, that's not true anymore. That's not true anymore because our young people are suspicious of institution and anyone who would align themselves, who would represent those institutions. And then the fact of the matter is that oftentimes the parish priest would be serving at that parish for decades and decades and decades. The truth of the matter is my appointment here is for 6 years, and if you guys don't run me out of town in that time, maybe the Archbishop might assign me here for another 6 years, and then I'm gone. Right? So that's the second consideration. The third thing is, the staff and I, we often try to wrestle with the question is, what can we do? What can we do to keep our young people in the practice of the faith when they arrive here? The survey is telling us that we're asking the wrong question. That question was relevant about 20, 25 years ago, but it's no longer relevant today. Because you know why? Unlike you, who are here in the pews, most of our young people don't even make their way into the church nowadays, right? But here's the thing is that, this is my workplace. By and large, my influence is here. And that's where you come in. You who are baptized into the faith, because you are out there in the world. Because you are out there in the world, you have the ability to influence and to affect and to bring people into this place. I have very little influence over that. Right? And so that's the challenge that it posed for us. And I think for us, we need to attack it in a two-pronged manner. We'll continue to do what we do here in the parish to make this a welcoming place, to make this a place of great challenge and a place of great affirmation in the life of faith. And then it is you, by virtue of your baptism, who goes out there to bring the people into this place. Okay? And I think if we concentrate on an area of influence, we'll have an opportunity for success. And then finally, the survey tells us, once again, that the parents are the most influential people, and that the parents need to invest in the life of their children, right? As they do their activity, as they look to their right and look to their left, do they see you present to them? Right? It was Albert Einstein that was accredited with this saying, that to listen always and to judge never. That your children need to understand how important that they are to you, and that you have a lot of influence in that. But here's the truth of the matter is that your influence, as important as it is also waning. Also waning. Because particularly in the area of social media, that is becoming a very influential aspect in the life of your children. And the truth of the matter is that they do not have the moral development of your children, the spiritual development of your children, the physical development of your children in mind. They have other agenda that they're trying to push. And they're very sophisticated in the algorithm, so sophisticated that our young people don't recognize that, but you recognize it, right? Pull up your YouTube channel and look at the video that is going to be played next on your playlist, right? How do you think they got those videos? Because of the algorithm, right? The TikTok videos, the Instagram, because they have the ability to predict our behavior based on our past interests. And so be attentive to that. And I know that in the coming years that your children will probably do not want anything to do with you, right? But make that investment. Make that investment to accompany them. Make that investment to bring wise people into their life that will accompany them as a lifelong endeavor. See, here at the church, we highlight certain aspects of the faith, right? There are certain important events: baptism, first reconciliation, first Eucharist, confirmation, wedding. But the truth of the matter is that we don't have the ability to accompany them the way that you parents and relatives and friends have the ability to accompany them. And so I encourage you to make an investment in the life of our young people. See, 2,000 years ago, when that Jesus came to preach the good news, He had to confront a culture. I'm still convinced that Jesus is relevant today as he was back then. That the church, the Catholic Church, is still a force of great good in the world today as it was then. Right? Because as we look around us, that Catholic Church, and most importantly, the work of the members of that church, had the ability to topple one of the greatest empire, but also one of the most corrupt empire that human ever existed, the Roman Empire. Right? It was able to bring that down. The school structures that we have today, the hospital, the charitable organizations that we come to depend on, those were all brought about because of the work of the members of the church. And so, even though we confront a culture today that's very different than the one that many of us grew up in, Jesus Christ is still the answer. And the work of the baptized is still relevant today. And I'm convinced that we are equal